asking me for something on camera is pushing my boundaries. If I had known you were going to do that, I probably would have addressed that before we got on camera, but I didn't know you were going to do that.
The video ends with her breaking down in tears and cutting the conversation short.
Yep, that's pretty much, and that's why people would watch MrGirl. Not because he's intelligent, not because he's having a smart conversation, not because he's funny. It's because he does provocative things for attention and he pretends to be an intellectual. He is not smart. He's somebody who thinks that he's very intelligent. He's not intelligent. He's just provocative, and he mistakes the attention that he gets for being provocative for being intelligent. He's a very stupid person. He has nothing of particular value or interest or intelligence to say, ever. There's never really anything that he says that's valuable. He doesn't say anything new, interesting, unique. He doesn't have an interesting perspective that's meant to make you think and change your mind. It's just meant to make you as uncomfortable as possible, so you'll go, this is really weird, guys. Like, I don't like this person, and that's where his attention comes from.
This film does try to make you by 11.
Enough is enough, guys. It's time to get into this segment. Somebody said I'd really enjoy this. This is about MrGirl. It's from Turkey Tom. It's called MrGirl, YouTube's Creepiest Intellectual. Incredible. I remember MrGirl, not a particularly good person. We can get into it as we go on, but probably one of Destiny's weirdest orbiters, most degenerate orbiters, and that's an accomplishment. That's quite an accomplishment. So that's like having the worst smelling diarrhea. Guilty. Anyway, let's get this going.
Well, guys, I say
that's not it. Sorry.
Cuties was a Netflix production that was widely criticized for its inappropriate depictions of underage actors, to put it mildly. Amidst all of the backlash, however, one man disagreed.
This film...
Well, he didn't just disagree. Listen, I think that Cuties... I understand the criticism of Cuties because they had like those young girls doing like, you know, twerking and stuff, which is definitely not a very comfortable experience. Outside of that, the movie was decent. The overall message was like, hey, what these girls are doing is bad. So I don't think it was a terrible movie. I just think that it was a little, we'll say, insensitive in some ways. But MrGirl didn't say... MrGirl didn't say that. He said he loved it. And then he seemed to enjoy... He seemed to enjoy those moments. Whether he's being genuine or rage baiting, it's hard to say. But he is quite a degenerate, so I wouldn't doubt that he enjoyed it. So
film does try to make you sexually aroused by 11-year-olds.
That's not what it does at all.
The backlash, however, one man disagreed.
This film does try to make you sexually aroused by 11-year-olds.
It specifically doesn't. The film, as much as it may have missed the mark in some ways, was meant to make you uncomfortable every time those moments happen where those girls were doing those things. All right, I watched it for research. I did. People were like, this is horrible. So I watched it. I was like, okay, let's see how bad it is. Those moments were uncomfortable, but the tone of the movie, even though it may miss the mark, was like, this is wrong and this is bad. So the fact that he got that out of that and was like, no, this is actually pretty good. It meant that's a self-report.
I'll say it's not bad at it.
Max Carson, or MrGirl as he's known online, was attacked by the internet at large for his review. But what they didn't know was that his opinion on Cuties was just the tip of the iceberg. It's a story that involves sex dolls, school shooters, domestic abuse,
yeah, like his dude, it's so much, it's just so weird.
Diss tracks, and psychological warfare, all from a man that fully believes deep down we're all exactly the same.
Okay.
Long before
well, actually, I'm not the same as you guys, if you know what I'm saying.
Max's disturbing opinions became known online. He was already a certifiably disturbed person, to say the least. He recalls reading books on how to pleasure women when he was just 7 or 8 years old, as well as
what? Why?
teaching all of his friends how to crank it in
I remember looking at anime boobies.
middle school. For this kind
Incredible.
of behavior to manifest that early, you'd think there was some kind of dysfunctional parenting involved in his upbringing. And
I mean, maybe it could be a sign of some kind of trauma. Some kids are just into like that kind of stuff. They activate early, we'll say, and then they are not taught correctly to, like, you know, keep it in your pants there, gooner. You know what I mean?
sure enough, there's information pointing to that. His father, a psychologist who was, at some point, hired as an expert witness on child mistreatment, directly told Max that he wanted to strangle him. Due to his father hating him, he ended up living with his mother, which led to
Kind of based.
another set of issues entirely. He's claimed multiple times that his mom was attracted to him.
And it felt like she was constantly making little comments or jokes, or insisting on having
sexual conversations with me, touching me in ways that I was uncomfortable with. I wanted to recoil from her. Like being in the car, I would be pressed against the door, never wanted to hug her. I would feel like I would want to wash it off if she touched me, if she looked at me, just constantly feeling violated.
He then goes on to explain that
Jesus. It's hard to feel bad for this guy because he's a truly despicable, disgusting piece of shit. And I also don't know how much of this is true. I don't know if he has a warped reality, but that sucks, I guess. Again, it's... Sorry, I don't like this guy, so it's hard to feel bad. I don't know how much I believe him, but...
That when he was 10 years old, his mother was married to another woman, and that they both teamed up against him, constantly
Ew.
nitpicking everything he did and accusing him of being a sexist. According to him, this happened anytime he displayed slightly aggressive behavior, which she eventually started doing on purpose just to get a rise out of him. When his father told him his mother might just not like him, Max decided to confront his mom about it, and she responded
Damn, your mom and dad both don't like you, dude? Jeez, what does that mean?
by telling him he needed to leave the house and go live with his dad. Following that situation, the family went to see 2 different therapists, one of whom took her side, and another who met with Max in private, and told him that he was probably right and his mom disliked him. As a result, Max stopped talking to his mom for a...
That's weird. If that's true, then that's an unprofessional therapist. The therapists aren't really supposed to be passing judgment necessarily. They're supposed to be listening. A good therapist will listen to a problem that's going on. They'll kind of absorb the information, and then they'll figure out what the solution is, and they'll try to get you to see that solution without telling it to you. You're not really supposed to tell people like, "Oh, this is your problem. You have this issue." But so if either that's not true, he's making it up, or it is true, and they're like a very unprofessional therapist.
And a half until they happened to see each other on the street and developed a polite but distant relationship. When he was 14, his mother told him that when people have intercourse, women get hurt, which gave him a strong sense of guilt. As a result, whenever he would spank the monkey while thinking about someone, he felt that he had to tell them afterwards to make it right. When he did it to people he couldn't talk to, like women in adult movies, he resorted to kissing the screen as a way to show affection toward them. This also made it so that he couldn't have a relationship for a very long time. Eventually, when Max...
What? I feel like this guy's personality is being weird, and that like half of this is just like a show to make people go like, "Whoa, that's crazy." He's that kind of... He just comes off as that like scummy piece of shit that thinks he's smart and artistic. So I wouldn't doubt that he like does it for some kind of artistic flair, but he would never admit it. I almost swear that this guy has mentioned that that like his brand of humor or something is almost Andy Kaufman-esque. And if you don't know who Andy Kaufman is, Andy Kaufman was a comedian that was very... he was always on. He was always acting. There's always something going on. You know, you never could necessarily tell what was real and not. So, I don't know, man.
Max was in college, he started having questions about himself. He suspected that his inability to have healthy relationships with women was a result of his unresolved trauma with his mother, so he decided to send her an email explaining how he felt about her since she kicked him out. She responded, saying that part of the reason she kicked him out was that she was attracted to him and afraid that she was going to act on it. When he told the rest of the family about what she'd said in an email, none of them believed it, and they all excused it as her misspeaking or simply trying to be provocative, which strongly contributed to him cutting ties with his entire family. In order to appropriately cover his college years,
I agree with them,
and the things he got up to, we have to contextualize by delving deeper into his high school years. Max describes the city he lived in as extremely progressive, to the point that his parents were divorced, his mother came out as lesbian, his mom's wife picked him up from school, and no one ever made fun of him for it. To put it simply, he grew up in a very tolerant and progressive environment, with his school shutting down plays that contained Latin American stereotypes, but having no issue with another play being put on at the school called The Vagina Monologues. Because of this, Max felt that he could, and should, express himself, and so he asked the editor-in-chief of the school's newspaper if he could write for it. The editor refused outright, but told him that he should start his own paper, which he eventually did. In 2001, Max began a newsletter titled The Crux, but he wasn't allowed to distribute it the regular way by simply placing it next to the rest of the newsletters and school papers. You see, the school staff didn't really like what he had to say, so they threw stacks of it into the trash whenever they caught it lying around, prompting Max to begin handing it out during lunch. And even then, they continued trying to stem its distribution by whatever means they had. But this might lead you to wonder, what was so bad about his newsletter that the entire school was adamantly trying to stop other students from even reading it? Well,
I'm just surprised. I mean, I just don't know how much I believe that he wanted to be part of the newsletter, which would become some kind of club. They said no, but go make your own and distribute it around the school. I feel like they wouldn't say that. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I just would. I'm not sure. I believe that school would say, "Yeah, just do your own and distribute it yourself."
Within the first 3 issues, the topics he covered were more mundane, with topics like fluorescent lights making him hate himself and everyone else, and
okay,
his support of the normalization of adult films.
I must have a fluorescent lights all around my house then. Jesus Christ.
which was par for the course for the school. But he also covered more inflammatory things like his review of a Cambodian New Year celebration where an Asian woman gave a speech denouncing the objectification of Asian women. In his newsletter, he wrote, "When I got to listen to the Asian woman's speech, I wished I were on a different planet. People seem to have this crazy idea that if you tell someone not to be racist, sexist, or whateverist, they'll see the light you've directed them to, and you'll have cleansed their souls. Secondly, was it necessary to wear such a short skirt? I don't want to listen to a
Well, I mean, yeah, of course. If you tell somebody, hey, just don't be racist, most of the times they don't necessarily even think that they're being racist. So.
Speech about objectifying Asian women who don't want to be objectified by someone who has just objectified herself. Also, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't one of the stereotypes that was listed in the speech that Asian women like to have intercourse? Perhaps I misunderstood this my whole life, but don't most people like it? And if Asian women really don't like it, then how come there are so many Asians? However innocuous
What?
this ultimately is for a teenage guy to write, you can see how a school teacher could take issue with it. But this little blurb pales in comparison to the future issues. In the 4th installment, Max writes about how people who talk too much about how important it is to fight against prejudice and other issues are simply interested in themselves, saying,
I mean, there's probably a level of truth to that, I would say. I mean, prejudice is bad. Guys, we should get rid of the racism. But people who drone on and on and on about it, typically white women, let's be real, are usually looking for some kind of social brownie points. Or some kind of big, BBC, big brownie cock. Let's be real.
Usually, these people will change the topic to something upsetting, and then they'll overflow with empathy for whomever you're talking about. You'll see that they're so sophisticated that the very mention of racism makes them want to cry for all the lynch victims they used to know. It's at times like this I wish that empathy were a liquid so that these people could choke on it.
Ooh, gotta. I wish empathy was a cock so I wouldn't choke on it, though, because I'm an expert. What?
Close this issue off with one question. If you could eliminate any race, what race would you eliminate? Well,
NASCAR, maybe? I feel like it's bad for the environment. Guys, obviously, that would be the answer. Duh. What other answer would there possibly be?
this was enough to get him in hot water. It was issue 5 that earned him a week-long suspension due to sexual harassment and racism, according to the school. Now, as much
based alert?
as Max became a condemned person later on, it was actually kind of right in this instance, since what he actually wrote was a satire about his principal, Mr. Myers, an admitted child molester who was accused by 28 different people over the course of 50 years.
What? What the fuck?
According to Max, there was an outpouring of support from students and school staff to let Mr. Myers keep his job. For context, he hadn't suffered any legal repercussions for his crimes due to the statute of limitations. He did eventually get arrested.
Why is there a statute of limitations? I don't understand. On blessing children. What? That shouldn't exist. That makes no fucking sense to me.
And convicted in 20.
There should only be a statute of limitations for if you accidentally harm a CEO. I think it should be like 3 days. You can, if you can get away with it for 3 days, okay?
23, not for molesting kids, but instead for insurance fraud and theft, although he was sentenced to 2 years of probation and is currently free. In his newsletter, Max wrote, "My response to Mr. Myers' controversial hobby of children, I'm going to break up with him. And had I known he was a child molester, I never would have gone out with him in the first place."
That's actually kind of funny.
He then went on to attack the people who supported him and those who were unwilling to press charges or contact social services over the allegations they received. For reasons beyond my...
I'm surprised this wasn't like a religious school or something. Not like unironically, it's not even like a joke. I could see them being much more forgiving with that kind of stuff.
Understanding, he immediately segues into race relations, saying, "Black people have an unfair advantage over the other non-white races. They have a well-respected representative. The closest thing that Latin American people have to Martin Luther King Jr. is the Taco Bell Chihuahua."
Jesus. It's like a funny guy, huh?
However funny that is as a statement.
It's kind of funny. I'm sorry. That's terrible to say. I don't know if it's true. What kind of Hispanic people do we have? Probably Ricky Martin's pretty good, or maybe Enrique Iglesias. That's not too bad, huh?
And it was actually just a setup for him to go on another rant about the Cambodian New Year celebration, which he punctuated by saying that Cambodian elementary schools sell hand grenades.
You know.
For $1.50, and by complaining that his school's attempts to teach about diversity were useless. Max said the superintendent told him that his paper was an act of sexual harassment against the principal, again, the confessed predator, and then referred him to the dean of students.
Just to be clear, I don't know how much I believe everything that I honestly would not doubt that this guy, MrGirl, is delusional and sets his reality to what he wants it to be. Again, this is the one who thought that Cuties was trying to send a message that children are attractive. It wasn't. That nobody that watched that movie, that's a normal. So nobody that watched that movie that isn't a pedophile was like, this is really making me horny. Now, you watch the movie, there are some parts that are like a little uncomfortable, but like for the most part, it's the tone of that movie 100% is everything that these girls are doing is bad. So that's just wrong. And so I wouldn't doubt that this person reconstructs his reality to fit like whatever he thinks. You know, I wouldn't doubt that he's some kind of a fucking delusional person.
A very light-skinned black woman who proceeded to tell Max he couldn't know anything about racism because he was white. Additionally,
True.
Max
I know. Listen, that's honestly insane. You're going to tell me, the one who invented it, my people, you're going to tell my people, the ones who invented racism, that we don't know anything about it? Let me tell you, I could write a book. Okay? I could write a book. Don't dismiss my white history. Thank you for the $5 from Skeletor VA. NASCAR might be bad for the environment, but it's American, therefore better than Formula One and the best thing on the planet. True. I agree.
His father was informed by the guidance counselor that some Puerto Rican students were planning to kill him when he was going home. And even after the issue was clarified and Max was exonerated.
Honestly, no normal person watched the movie in the first place. I don't think that that's necessarily true. I think that the American marketing for that movie was really weird, from my understanding. I think that for a lot of people, especially for girls, you know, men, I think, are more uncomfortable watching that movie because men are very like afraid of people thinking that they're predators. I think a lot of women that watch Cuties were like, "Oh, this is a weird coming of age story," you know. So I think the best criticism is, hey, they shouldn't have used children for the scenes. If they had like found some more adult actors that looked young, that probably would have been better or something like that. That's really your best criticism, but yeah, I don't think the movie really wasn't that weird.
Of being racist, he became so scared and paranoid that he refused to use public urinals for fear of an attack. This was permanent, by the way. He claims he's still unable to use urinals to this day. The ACLU was then contacted, and once they claimed that the school was suppressing Max's freedom of speech, his suspension was lifted, and his news
What? Is this real?
letter was allowed to be properly distributed, at least for a while. A few issues later, it got him in trouble once again, this time for obscenity. And this one is more understandable since he gave a detailed description of an adult video and wrote half a page about how he was gay for his friend and suggested he wanted his friend to treat him like Mr. Myers treated underage boys.
Okay. Incredible.
Not exactly in great taste, but still, it did fall under the umbrella of freedom of speech, and Max's suspension was once again lifted. But not before they contacted his dad and brought him into the school. The school expected he would be pretty mad at Max, but instead his father staged a protest, called the teacher a Nazi, and refused to leave the school until the police arrived. Despite how little they had in the way of success when trying to shut Max up, they continued trying, as he was suspended 2 more times in the same year, once for writing about how he whacked it, which included a tutorial for girls, by the way, and another time.
Wow. I guess at least he's being inclusive. I don't know.
For writing F you mom at the end of the issue. Like the other ones, these suspensions were also lifted, and he continued to write new issues of The Crux until he graduated, now more invested than ever in his writings. With high school done, it was time for Max to go to big boy school, and he would start off at Colorado State, during which he was able to get a position as a columnist on one of the school's papers. However, his second article there got him in a little bit of trouble because he suggested that the school have a female football team that wore bikinis while they played so that he could ogle at them, which got him fired.
Well, I mean, here's my thing. I'm not trying to be rude, but people are always talking about how they want to drive up viewership of female sports. I agree. If you want to drive up viewership of female sports, you need to drive me up. You know what I mean? Nothing's going to get me watching more than comfortable clothing for women. Let's just be honest. It's comfortable clothing for women. I don't even like it. Well, why would you want to wear lots of clothes? The second I get home, I get naked. That's what I do. Okay. So, maybe play volleyball and like a little something comfortable. That's all I'm really saying. Thank you for the $5 from Skeletor VA again. Also, I know you love hearing from the first time stream watchers. This is my first time catching a stream live. Any fellow first timers in chat. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
A couple of years later, long after he'd left the CSU, he enrolled in the University of Colorado at Boulder, where, after he was rejected by every school paper, he decided to once again start publishing his own newsletter, The Yeti, the very first issue of which began with the following passage. I have a new theory about why girls—
I think that maybe this is a pretty good argument to why we need people like lobotomies again. Maybe we should give people lobotomies again.
Girls don't like me. It's a bit more sophisticated than my previous attempts at explaining this phenomenon, which ran along the lines of, girls don't like me because they're stupid, or girls don't like me because they can't understand that leg humping is just my way of saying hi. While these remain valid points to consider, I think my new theory really hits the nail on the head. Girls don't like me because I make them think. This is immediately followed by Max recounting—
Yeah, I think that you're a fucking creep. Like, what do you...
an experience he had where two girls he was friends with became entranced with a guy who didn't engage with them intellectually and instead talked about himself. He explained this phenomenon, saying, "In a world where women are powerless objects, it's hard to talk to me, a smart, attractive, funny, sensitive, attentive, honest guy who pushes girls to think and asks them questions that are hard to answer." The second issue was mostly
What does that mean? He's probably asking them the dumbest, weirdest fucking questions ever. And he's like, "Oh, I'm a real intellectual. Don't you think it's weird?" Here's probably one question that Max would ask. He would be like, "Isn't it so unfair that as a girl you can walk around the house and find any object that you want to use to do your thing, like cucumbers or the backs of some wooden spoons? But as a guy, what are you supposed to use? What happens when you're a 13-year-old going through puberty and you're just looking around the house like, I gotta put my fucking little penis in something, and you can't find anything? The Girls Gone Wild commercial came on. You're like, oh my God, I got to do something with this. You don't even know what to do with yourself because you're so young. You have no idea what's going on. Huh? You think that's one of the questions he asks? I'm surprised I'm married. I'm actually genuinely surprised that I'm married. That's actually concerning. I think somebody should investigate my wife. Actually thinking about it, I'm weird, but why the fuck are you? What am I doing in my life? And why would you want to be there to do it with me? What a degenerate, right?
about how he was scared of black people because he instinctively imagined they'd all be constantly angry over racism, and he also stated he couldn't talk to them because he couldn't understand Ebonics. He
Jesus Christ.
juxtaposed this to make a larger point about how indoctrinating kids into identifying themselves with either slaves or the slave masters due to their race was bad. But still, this was very much the same format and concept as The Crux, which is to say that it got under people's skin a lot. And the third issue was also pretty interesting. It's written as a satire about women being unable to orgasm, which got him called into the Vice Chancellor's office.
I don't really think that that's a real issue. I feel like women don't have that much of a problem doing it. Men have just historically been a little lazy. Thank you for the 8 months on Medium Go from Tree Frog. Pops, do you think Mr. Girl is a smart fella or a fart smeller? I wish he was a fart smeller, but not that kind of gas, you know what I mean?
And also, a piece in the Colorado Daily covering his supposed sexism. Once again, the ACLU intervened, and nothing happened to Max. However, from that point forward,
Why is the ACLU doing so much to protect this guy?
college staff hated him and were just waiting for an opportunity to exact revenge. For a while, he continued to publish his newsletters unbothered, which gave way to multiple bangers, like a tutorial on how to be a good white ally, which included the phrase, "Every time a white person laughs, a black person cries."
Okay.
Another highlight is his diatribe against fat girls, pushing it to the extreme and actively promoting anorexia to make a point about appearance standards. However offensive on the surface level, the actual beliefs that Max expressed through his writing were very much in line with feminism, racial equality, and other beliefs that permeate college campuses. The only difference is that Max did his best to espouse these beliefs in the most sarcastic, insane way possible to get people mad at him. In an
Well, yeah, but isn't that just the opposite side of like that racist coin? Like how is like, hey, I have the particular political or let's say social belief of feminism is positive, but all I do is go on and on and on and like try to rage bait women into being angry at me? Like, isn't that just the opposite side of the coin of like just overly pandering to women? What?
interview conducted with him at the time, he made this perfectly clear.
I think there's a lot of social issues out there, important things that people aren't talking about, like racism and sexism and homophobia and things like that, that I feel like would be better addressed in a humorous manner than by preachy, finger shakers.
Sure. I mean, humor can be a pretty good tool.
Well, don't you feel sometimes that people will take that satirical manner in a negative light instead of doing something positive for the cause?
Yeah.
That's possible. I mean, if you unintentionally generate an audience of people who dislike the groups you're trying to advocate for, yeah, for sure. I mean, I've been there before.
Yeah, I mean, it's a concern of mine. I don't know. I don't think that reading my newsletter is going to convert someone who wasn't a racist to being a racist, or is going to make someone who has no prejudice whatsoever to suddenly being like, wow, I do hate women.
He made it clear time and time again that he was quite left.
Wow. I've actually just realized something.
Leaning politically, but just loved being provocative, which deeply irritated the college staff. But it all came to a head in April of 2007, when the Virginia Tech shooting happened.
It is an incredibly busy time here in this newsroom as we are all pulling together to cover what is turning out to be the deadliest campus shooting in U.S. history. At this afternoon...
On the 16th of April, undergraduate Sung Hui Cho went on a shooting rampage, killing 32 people and injuring 17 others.
That's terrible. I was going to make a joke about how that sounds like an interesting dish, but that would probably be, this is probably not the time for that. Very inappropriate.
Very next day, Max attended a women's studies class that focused on the issues of black women, during which, while everyone else lamented what happened in Virginia, someone said, "I can't imagine shooting 32 people," which prompted Max to respond, "Anyone who says they've never thought about shooting 32 people is lying."
You know what? I'm gonna be real with you. I've never had that fantasy of shooting 32 people. Ever. Okay? That's actually fucking crazy. I have had those fantasies where I'm like a fucking badass, you know, in like a superhero thing, and I'm going, psh, 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 psh. But it's not really about people. It's more like, I feel like that's different. I feel like that's not as real. But okay, interesting.
He then went on to explain his statement, supposedly specifying that given how generally obsessed people are with violence, especially when they're kids and teenagers, and given how terrible the conditions are in public schools, it made sense for that to come up as a thought. But he clarified he did not intend it as a threat. Despite the clarification, he was summoned to the chancellor's office and had to rehash his explanation once again. But
I mean, that's probably a good thing, because I remember when I was young, I'm 34, you know, before all these school shooting things going on, people would make crazy threats all the time, and everybody was like, not a big deal. Like, there's this one guy who said he was going to blow up the school with a fucking bomb, and they're just like, hey, you didn't mean that, right? It's like nowadays, they were a little too lax on those rules. It was crazy. It's like, Jesus Christ.
As soon as he was about to walk out, he was met by 2 police officers. Max claims that at that moment, he realized that the administration was exacting its revenge, and they reported him to the police as if he'd made a genuine threat. He was then questioned by the cops, excerpts of which he eventually uploaded to
I mean, it makes sense that they should question him.
YouTube.
So just to start off with, why do you think you're here?
I think I'm here because some of my classmates and my professor became uncomfortable during a conversation we had in class today.
In his recounting of this whole process, he says he spent a night in jail, during which they had the TV on, which allowed him to watch CNN report on his arrest live on TV, as if he were a Virginia Tech copycat shooter who was caught early. It's pretty easy to find news reports about Max from this time, some of them focusing exclusively on his unfortunate quote and painting him as a potential shooter, others including information about his newsletter and the crazy things he wrote in his issues. Later,
I mean, yeah, it makes sense that they would think that, especially if people are going to be on high after some kind of a shooting.
Ron, he found that unlike what the news report said, it wasn't his teachers or students who felt threatened by him that called the cops. It was the head of the women's studies department, who, upon hearing of his arrest, cheered, saying, "We got his ass." As soon as his case hit the news, 4 ACLU-affiliated lawyers jumped on the opportunity to represent him for free due to how much attention the situation got from national news, which is not surprising considering how soon it was after Virginia Tech. His dad bailed.
Well, this is so bizarre. Why would they jump on the case to try to defend this guy? That's so fucking strange to me.
Him out. Max refused to plead guilty, and ultimately, he was offered deferred prosecution, meaning the charges against him would get dropped if he simply committed no other crimes for a year, which he gladly agreed to. While Max claims that all of this was done with the intent of permanently stifling his ambitions with expressing his unorthodox perspective, it did quite the opposite. Now, the faculty advisor for another school paper became a fan of his work, and offered him the position of opinion editor, which he happily accepted, partly.
Wow, this guy's life's like a fucking, It's very interesting what he did with all this attention, which is just spiral his content out of control.
Because he genuinely wanted the job, and partly because he wanted to do a little trolling. The first instance of his shenanigans was to, as he put it, publish a moderately racist essay about how Latin Americans should speak better English.
Wow, that's sounds like a strong start, bud.
Surprisingly, he got away with this, so he proceeded to up the ante. He submitted one of his own articles titled, "If it's war the Asians want, it's war they'll get." I don't know why he has so much smoke with the Asians, honestly. I don't get it.
He's probably like super attracted to Asians. Knowing the kind of person that he probably is one of those white people that fetishizes Asian women because he thinks that they're like small and defenseless and, you know, all that other weird shit.
The article was actually covered by the local news.
Stereotypes I obviously don't agree with, guys. Although I will say, I will say, it is a little bit concerning that when it comes to some anime, there's not a lot of mature, thick, busty girls. There's more lolly representation than there are for mature, thick, busty MILFs. So that's a problem for me because I'm looking to jork it. And by it, I mean violently masturbate my penis, okay?
News.
The article, written by student Max Carson, details his hate for Asians and poses that they be subjected to phases of absurd tasks. For example, Phase 1 suggested catching Asians with large butterfly nets and dragging them into apartments for further phases, which include forced binge drinking, useless games, and house redecorating.
This article essentially parodies.
Kind of sounds like an Asian show. You guys ever see like the game shows or some of the stuff? There was like, what is it, like Ready Player One or something? That's probably not what it's called, but there's like an Asian show I see on Netflix. This is pretty good, where they're all in like some kind of game. They get cards, they gotta collect cards and stuff.
the concept of immigrants integrating into another culture, but regardless, it instantly became the most read article in the paper of all time, and all of his social media platforms and email accounts were flooded with death threats from people who thought he was serious about wanting war with Asian people. The paper was shut down, and the
I mean, if every single time he tries to make some kind of a point using like provocative language to try to advocate for some political expression, it always gets misrepresented, then like he's obviously not effective, right? Like we understand that. He's obviously not effective at using this humor to relay a message. He's just rage baiting for attention and then saying, no, I actually really like Asians. Hey guys, we should chase Asians with butterfly nets, but I really like them. That's absurd. Oh, Alice in Borderland, yeah. That's what it's called.
The Asian students held a protest against anti-Asian prejudice, which Max actually attended, and he took a picture with them, much to their surprise. Another writing project from this period is a blog titled Shame Lane, which is no longer accessible.
I think that Max is the kind of person who intentionally tries to get himself in trouble so that he could try to come out of it like, no, wait, you're just misunderstanding me. Let's have like a conversation. I'm actually a pretty smart guy. I think it's all some kind of a manipulation tactic, just be obnoxious. It's all intentional.
However, we know from articles written about it that it mostly focused on topics around intercourse, as well as more candid diary entry-like windows into Max's personal life at the time. He recounts temporarily working as a barista, but having to quit because he stared at women too much. Then he got a job at a YMCA in San Francisco and found himself a girlfriend, although they broke up shortly after they moved in together. And the breakup was so bad that the police were called on them by the neighbors, although he doesn't specify here what exactly he meant by so bad. However, he has made a video talking about an instance where the police came during one of his breakups, which I assume is this one, unless it's happened multiple times, which is even worse.
I grabbed her wrist. She screamed for me to stop. And then, after that first time, a few weeks later, I grabbed her arms because she wasn't listening to me or something. And I grabbed them really hard, and afterwards she showed me bruises on her arms. A little bit after that, I just said, okay, that was so loud that the neighbors are going to call the cops. And before they get here, I need you to put on a long sleeve shirt so they don't see the bruises on your arms. Because if they do, I'm going to spend the night in jail, 100%.
At one
Just the night, huh? Wow. Why would you confidently like express this? I don't understand. Even if you wanted to be like charitable and be like, oh, this is disgusting, maybe he's changed as a person. He's not even talking about it like he's ashamed of himself. Like he's talking about this like he thinks that this is just a story to him. That's disgusting, disturbing behavior. That's not even like normal levels of anger problems. Like a lot of people, and this is like fucked up, but there's a lot of people who have anger problems and they'll do something, they'll lose themselves in their anger, and then they'll come off of that like anger high and they're like, holy fuck, what did I just do? Like that was horrible, right? That's not even what that was. That was like a funny little like fun haha recalling of him being abusive with no emotion or sadness or empathy or anything in his eyes. That was just disturbing.
At one point, Max wrote a blog entry celebrating the number of teenage girls who friended him on Facebook, saying, "The fact that teenage girls read this doesn't turn me on. However, it does make me feel happy. I like the idea that after a long, boring day of teachers narrowing their eyes at the slightest hint of your sexuality, of teenage boys not caring, thinking about how you turn on, and of your fathers cringing at the idea of you ever having intercourse, you can come to Shame Lane and be in the company of people who accept and even encourage your sickest thoughts." That preface where he says it doesn't turn him on is doing a lot of heavy lifting here. Up until this point,
True.
Max was troubled and controversial for sure, but not to the point where he became genuinely evil. Every potentially despicable thing he wrote.
No, I think we're at that point for the most part. I think. Well, maybe not. We're pretty close. We're pretty close to like the genuine evil aspect. I mean, after recalling that story, but then I guess we're not there yet. That was like a flash forward. But
his papers always had a twist to it so that it redeemed his true intentions. And Max always managed to find an audience. And based on the things he said in his newsletter, he seemingly always had friends and even girlfriends. However, during the time between his college years and the creation of his YouTube channel, something changed.
It's because women can sometimes be stupid and be like, oh, she's just artsy. You just don't get him, Mom. It's just artistic. He's artistic, dude.
He really jumped.
Yeah, my cousin is too, dude. All right.
The shark from writing things that could be misconstrued as inappropriate to actually engaging in things that don't really bode well to the average person, to say the least. For example, in 2014, he posed nude at actress Olivia Wilde's baby shower. This, in and of itself, is just weird.
Olivia Wilde? I like Olivia Wilde. She was good in The Newsroom. That show was fucking awesome. Why would he do that?
but he clarified in a Reddit post from a few years later that the purpose of him being naked was for the people attending the baby shower to do an anatomical drawing of him. However, in other posts in the same thread, he admits to being an exhibitionist and pervert who was, at least at the time, doing this kind of gig as a job. Worse yet is the fact that—
Oh, well, just to be clear, did he do that because he was like hired to do it? Then I don't care. I just kind of got the impression that he did it because he's a fucking creep.
he told a story about doing it in a classroom where the female teacher started flirting with him to the point that he got an erection. He specified that this happened in front of high school kids and that he regularly posed naked for teenagers between 15 and 18 years old. In 2016, court records showed that a woman named Hannah was married to Max and filed for divorce. Though she seems to have made an effort to stay out of the spotlight insofar as Max's story, and given she's not that pivotal as a part of it, I won't go in depth here. In 2017, he started a gaming channel called MrGirl Gaming, which, as far as I know, is the first instance of that alias being used. However,
should I make a Papa God gaming channel?
However, that only lasted for a while, as he eventually returned to his true passion, controversial political commentary.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know. For me, it seems so hard to be a gaming streamer. It's not actually difficult. Like, working a real job is harder than that. But it seems difficult to be a gaming streamer because, like, how do you not get fucking bored playing video games all day? Like, that's just crazy to me. Like, how is that interesting? I don't know. I prefer commentary. Although I guess some people would think that that's boring too.
As the anti-SJW community and breadtube content started peaking in popularity, Max saw it as an opportunity to once
Maybe go back to the bus job, buddy. Why would I do that?
again resurge as a cultural animal. But this time around, he was less
Are you jealous I used to drive $1 million vehicle every day for work, bro?
interested in being provocative in an intellectual sense, and more so in hamming it up for shock value. One of his supposedly brilliant think pieces was a half-hour-long video of him naked and cranking it, which is still up on the hub to this day.
Oh, okay. Interesting. I mean, you could just say you want to jork it. You don't have to try to make an art excuse.
Another low light of this period was a Reddit post he made to the unpopular opinion.
Nude models are strange people. That's not a job most people will do, so it attracts weirdos. Maybe that could be true. I feel like I can understand like nude modeling fundamentally. It's just about like some kind of expression of the human body. Like I can see people seeing like deep, profound, artistic perspective in it or something. I kind of get it, I guess. But I could see it attracting weirdos.
In subreddit with the title "PDF-philia is a spectrum, and we are all on it." With a title like that, it leaves very little to the imagination regarding what kind of things he'll be saying. Just a few lines.
Yeah, it's a spectrum, guys. We're all on it. Okay, I'm more towards like the 25 plus side of that spectrum. Okay, I'm usually I mean, actually, I'm going through like a phase right now where I'm jorking it to like. Like fucking old women. I don't know what it is. Really just like MILFs. Mostly like 40-plus-year-old women are just kind of getting me lately. It's not even like controllable. I'm not even like trying to do it. It's just that's all that really gets me going. Especially if they're dressed up in cosplay. I gotta move on. We're getting too deep here, dude. It's time to fucking move on, bro. Moving on.
Lines in, he dropped.
We're moving on.
This gem. Everyone is from time to time attracted to minors. Bad Baby, Britney Spears, etc. Their popularity is a testament to that. I guess the glaring missing piece in his rationale here is that those people were primarily popular amongst other teenagers, but regardless, I don't think he cared too much about the details. Another thing he failed to account for—
I mean, I'm kind of attracted to Britney Spears now. She's insane. That's my problem, is I like crazy women. Britney Spears is fucking crazy. Although she might be a little too crazy. She's got like fucking like I kind of get why they did a conservatorship. If you look at her posts, I kind of get it. Thanks for the $20 from Kelly Marie Appleby. Hey, hi guys, just paying Pops. Well, thank you so much, by the way. That's a lot of money. Hi guys, just paying Pops as local dudes. Hope everyone had a good weekend. There was a wicked storm here, and it caused a complete blackout. Spent the weekend with my husband, reading and cooking by fucking candlelight. That sucks. I'm sorry to hear that. That's terrible. Well, happy that you guys sound like you're all right.
Here is the fact that he spent over a decade of his life knowing his mother was attracted to him, going as far as to say he felt violated by her, even if she didn't act on it. Additionally, he attended a school where the principal was a certified molester. With these things in mind, it's not surprising that he thought about this stuff more than the average person, but going from that to confidently claiming every person is on the spectrum seems like he's attempting to make himself feel more normal by accusing everyone else of being like him.
I think that, unironically, like all jokes aside, you could probably like somebody, or I think that there are people who could probably have a conversation about this in a productive mental health way, like people who are social workers or sociologists. The problem is that Max talks about these things in a way where he's trying to be provocative, and I think a lot of it is a self-report. I don't think he's trying to have an interesting conversation about like the way that some people might interact with other people, I guess. You know, like if somebody sees somebody and they happen to look like an adult and they unintentionally get attracted to them, but then they find out that they're a child, they're like, oh shit, like that's, you know, that could be a conversation that people could have. But I don't think that's a conversation Max is trying to have, and I don't think that he's trying to have this conversation in a way to be productive from a social perspective. I think he's just trying to be as provocative as possible for as much attention as possible, because that seems to be his entire life. His entire life is an attention chasing thing. It seems like his mother and father didn't really love him, and they didn't really give him the attention that he wanted. So he says things for attention. That just sounds like Max. That just sounds like who he is in general.
At one point, he said, "I also think everyone is attracted to prepubescent children from time to time." Though he reinforced multiple times that he thought acting on those urges should always be illegal, he
that's wild. That is absolutely wild.
simultaneously reminded everyone that fantasizing about it was legal. The thing about this is fantasizing about these things contributes to eventually doing them, hence people's hang-ups about it. Instead of acknowledging people's objections to his thread, he simply focused on what was legal or not, ignoring anything that undercut his point. This was just one in the unfortunately extensive list of things that heavily suggested Max was a creep. Within a year of this thread, he went from
a pedophile,
a relatively obscure edgelord, to essentially front-page news on YouTube when he released a review of the movie Cuties.
I'll say, it's not bad at it.
For context, Cuties is a Netflix-produced movie that featured extremely inappropriate scenes of multiple 11-year-olds dancing in short shorts. Once it was released,
none of them were boys? Like, sexist much? All right, sorry about that. That was a little inappropriate. Wasn't it? Probably should have made that joke, but sorry about that.
Instantly met with extreme disapproval from everyone, since it essentially contained the exploitation of children. They tried to salvage the movie's PR in a dozen different ways, often by saying that the movie was mismarketed by Netflix and that it was actually against the exploitation. This point was
I think that that's true. I think if you watch the movie, that is true. It is against the exploitation of children. That is the tone of the movie.
Also attached to the claim that the backlash came from Western audiences who were too dumb and chauvinistic to get it, since the movie was made by a Muslim woman. However, none of these copes remotely do justice to the fact that the movie explicitly
I don't think that's true. I think that Western countries are more sensitive to topics of pedophilia. I think that that's what it is, and that's a good thing. Obviously, you should be more sensitive to those topics. But I think that Western audiences are more sensitive to the topics of pedophilia, and so it made Western audiences uncomfortable. Of course.
Depicts the exploitation of minors and frames it as something liberating by juxtaposing it against strict Islamic values. Regardless of how obviously terrible this was, some YouTube pseudo...
Well, that's kind of true, no?
Hopes remotely do justice to the fact that the movie explicitly depicts the exploitation of minors and frames it as something liberating by juxtaposing it against strict Islamic values.
Yeah, I mean, the movie is about a young girl who is part of like her father is... This is what the movie is. It's a young girl. Her father is getting married to another woman. And she's like put through a bunch of like oppressive things because they're Muslim. The mom is really upset that dad's marrying someone. He didn't even talk to her. She feels like a level of oppression associated with that. So she goes too far in the opposite direction and she starts like dancing. And then the dances get too like provocative. And then at the end of the movie, they dance on stage and everybody boos them off the stage because like this is basically disgusting. So she spirals out. There's one moment she pushes a kid into a lake. Like almost kills him, which was fucking crazy. And then it kind of ends with her just being a normal kid playing hopscotch or some fucking shit like that, or jumping on a trampoline or something. I don't fucking remember what it was. That's what the movie is. You know, if you remove the uncomfortable dancing scenes, it's actually a pretty good movie. When I watched it, I'm going to tell you guys, I'm going to be real honest with you, the little kids twerking did not make me horny. So I didn't have too much of an issue with it. You know, it wasn't really that big of a deal to me, especially since the tone was always like, this is wrong. But I could understand people being more sensitive to that, especially a more Western audience.
Regardless of how obviously terrible this was, some YouTube pseudo-intellectuals decided to make it their hill to die on. One of them was Sneeko, who someone...
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't make the hill to die on that. Like, I'm not looking to have any robust debates about Cuties. It's not that. It does not matter to me.
I've covered in another video.
Just one of the movies that's going to age well.
Oh, no. You see, the child, it was just a goof. It was just for laughs, you know? Just, why aren't you laughing?
Like, just to be clear, Moist Critical's fucking annoying. Like, this is the problem, is that, like, his message isn't necessarily wrong, but he's just such a preachy, annoying fuck. You know, and Sneeko is looking to be provocative there, too. And then you got the easy dunk from Moist Critical. You know, again, the best criticism is like, oh, the message was right, but you know, the information in there was very uncomfortable. Well, so dancing was uncomfortable, but
once he saw this commotion taking place, Max decided it was a prime opportunity for him to give his 2 cents. In his video about it, he made a series of statements that sounded seriously incriminating.
But yeah, as far as like sexy music videos go, it's not bad. They're pretty hot.
Oh, incredible.
And, you know, you can say whatever you want about me. It's not my fault. I didn't make them do that. They did that.
Okay.
That's the point. That's the whole point of the movie, is that you're supposed to be sitting there thinking, look at the blonde one. You're supposed
No, it's not the point of the movie at all. It's not even close to the tone of the movie.
to be sitting there holding these 2 thoughts in your head, and one that these are kids, and the other that they're hot.
No, the other, you're supposed to hold a thought of their kids, and this is disgusting. That is the tone of the movie. What he's saying is a self-report. He's getting turned on by the movie. That's him telling us that he's turned on by the movie. That is not the reality. Only, like, honestly, only a fucking idiot would ever come to that conclusion. That's it.
In another video of his from the same time, he planned to record himself cranking it to the movie, but didn't because his editor wouldn't edit it. As you can probably imagine, this really did not go well whatsoever. In September 2020, Moist Critical covered the controversy surrounding the movie. After having thoroughly denounced it, he addressed MrGirl's video on it, highlighting how downright creepy his take on it was.
That's the message that people are walking away from the movie with. Pedophiles with the biggest smile on their face, pumping their fists in the air. Thanks, Netflix. Just easily accessible fucking softcore child. It's unbelievable. You can't defend this movie, and if you're defending this movie, you haven't seen it, and if you have seen it and are defending it, you might be a pedophile.
Well, just to be clear, Moist Critical never watched the movie. I'm just saying, it wasn't like I don't know. For me, part of me is like, when you if you watch Cuties and you get like a fucking boner, you're weird. That's my thing. It's uncomfortable, like, but it's like, I don't know. I feel like it's not that fucking. It wasn't the big deal people made it out to be. It was not softcore child porn. It was just it was a coming of age story that had some twerking in it, which probably isn't appropriate. I get it, but it's not really that big of a fucking deal.
It's as simple as that.
Though Max's video was already getting some traction on its own, Critical's mention of him sent it into the...
Well, I mean, this is what he does, right? He tries to be as provocative as possible for the attention. That's like the only reason people engage with him.
stratosphere.
I know he wants to think that he's like this deep intellectual and that's why people like to watch his stuff, but that's not what it is. It's because he's fucking weird and provocative for attention. Nobody cares about any of the points that he ever makes. It's always about how much he could push the lines. That's why he has to continuously push the line to get attention. And Max has only ever gotten attention when he says things that are as provocative as possible. No one's ever gone like, wow, that's actually a really interesting, good point that you're making. It's always when he's being obnoxious, like when he's talking about how kids are hot.
Turning him into the object of hundreds of thousands of people's hatred overnight. And like any lolcow worth his salt, he instantly got an invitation from Ethan Ralph to the kill stream to reiterate and clarify his thoughts on the movie. Surprisingly, this actually got him to slightly walk back his stance, as it appears Andy Worski informed him that 5,000 girls auditioned for the kids' parts, meaning whoever did the movie's casting watched 5,000 kids dance in order to pick who would be in it. This was shocking enough that Max decided that Netflix should probably take down the movie. However, dozens of posts of his solidify that he still thought it was a good movie, and there was nothing wrong with him having enjoyed watching it or even feeling arousal from it. Soon after,
the arousal thing is just, that's the problem. He's a fucking pedophile. So
after he got his own thread on Kiwi Farms, prompting him to state that neo-Nazis were doxing him, which eventually progressed to him
maybe they're doing the right thing this time, no?
saying that the 5,000 people who negatively commented on his video
Maybe they're doing the right thing.
were also all Nazis. Ultimately, he never fully retracted his statements about the movie or changed his mind about its contents. Instead, he capitalized on his infamy as much as he could by trying his best to get the attention of pundits like Steven Crowder.
And after seeing what's happening with Vox getting Steven Crowder's channel demonetized, I decided to repost this video with a new introduction to stand in solidarity with Steven. Censorship is an increasingly huge problem, and huge corporations like YouTube or the government or whoever should not be reaching into my channel's pants without my consent and pulling videos out. You can call me anything you want.
Yeah, I think they should be able to do that. It's a business. They want to maintain profitability, and or advertisers will pull out and the whole platform goes down.
If it makes you feel better. You can spit on me, you can spit in my mouth, you can pull my hair, you know, whatever you need to do.
I'll have to cover a lot of this up with editing, but if you didn't realize what he did there, he took all of his clothes.
Yeah, he's intentionally being provocative because his message is stupid and unappealing, but he says it in a weird way, so people will watch it and be like, wow, fascinating. This is art. It's not. It's fart.
Off between.
See, now that's art. That's funny. That's true humor, guys. That's true humor.
The shots, I guess to make fun of Steven Crowder for being homophobic or something. 1 month later, Max came back with a video covering all the controversies he'd been in since high school, claiming that he'd simply been misunderstood in every single case. While this video is pretty super...
It's interesting how his entire platform seems to centralize around all the controversy he's been in instead of actually, you know, content? I don't know.
Superficial in the point that it makes, it's quite telling that he sees the Cutie situation as just another instance of people unfairly targeting him. And it's even more telling that to this day, he couldn't move past the issues he had with the authorities a decade prior. Like an edgy...
Where he made a comment about like shooting up a school and they took it personally because, you know, that's the atmosphere is now.
Peter Pan, developmentally stunted and frozen in his edgelord phase. In December of 2020, Max got banned from YouTube, which did very little to make him actually change his content. And so...
Thank God, holy fuck.
As a result, when his channel was eventually reinstated on YouTube, he went right back to usual. However out of touch he was with his own situation, it did give way to plenty of extremely entertaining moments, such as his Eminem parody song about his controversy. 'Cause I'm a pedophile! He was basking.
Yeah, I mean, the song wasn't that bad, to be honest. Like, it wasn't a bad song. You gotta give credit where credit is due. Still a scumbag, but decent.
In the attention, negative or otherwise, just as he did in every other instance when he got into trouble. It was evident that Max was clinging to his 15 minutes of fame since he continued to make increasingly unhinged rehashes of it.
Yep.
You're playing Minecraft in a cave looking for diamonds. That's funny. I'm in the same cave looking for miners.
Albeit, they did continue to be
I just took the mining trade in this game too. How funny is that?
Entertaining and successful, accruing millions of views and streams, and even attaining meme status when it got uploaded with this picture of Wapple. However, once you look beyond...
What the fuck is Wapple? What?
Them, very little substance can be found in what Max is trying to push, leaving him permanently relegated to the outskirts of BreadTube. And make no mistake, they all hate him.
Can't even play hopscotch without popping a rager.
He was banned 2 more times, once for uploading a video that had Pornhub in the title, and another time for featuring a clip from a movie that depicted explicit violence. Although
the misguided artist, guys. You know who else was a misguided artist?
his channel did come back in both cases. The last ban was a result of a mass flagging campaign from followers of Nick Fuentes after a series of debates between Max and Destiny about the latter's association with Nick, whom Max called a white supremacist. Throughout 2021 and 2022,
well, he was right about that probably, but
22, Destiny and Max grew closer, which isn't surprising since in many ways
Destiny's a fucking degenerate. This is like the Destiny problem. Or it's a problem he used to have. I don't think he does it anymore. Where there are people that he could, you know, that are interesting for content, and he would befriend them in a way that was like too much. Like MrGirl, Nick Fuentes, he'd become too much friends with them. It wouldn't just be professional, like they would hang out and have like chicken and waffles together. I don't think Destiny's like, I don't think that he likes, he ever liked Nick Fuentes for his perspective. I think that he probably liked Nick Fuentes because he could get content out of them. And also, I think that considering Destiny's past, he probably has had difficulty generating friends that weren't trying to backstab him, and a lot of his friends were progressives, and so he's like, you know, let's try conservatives. Maybe they're a little nicer or more forgiving in some capacity. You know, I get it, but still, fuck, not really the best way to move there.
They mirrored each other. Both were extremely invested in discussing controversial topics, even if it made them look bad to outsiders. Both found themselves in very left-leaning circles, despite retaining views that could be seen as offensive by that demographic. And lastly, both got into controversy over statements made on the topic of pedophilia.
Oh, so I don't think any sort of mental illness should be demonized. The demonization of pedophiles in society is an incredibly negative thing, I would think. Pedophilia is very much a mental disorder. The more you stigmatize it, the less people seek treatment for it. So yeah, I absolutely think that it shouldn't be demonized or stigmatized.
Cool. Yeah.
All in all,
well, he's not wrong. Like, just to be clear, from a human perspective, pedophiles are disgusting and deserve the wood chipper. When you retract and you look at it from the perspective of like actual protecting children, you're better off not completely demonizing it. If you demonize pedophiles, they won't come forward and get the mental health help they need. Instead, they'll just kind of sit with their thoughts and eventually act on them. So like, yeah, there's an intelligent conversation to have there. You know, it doesn't sound like he was trying to be provocative there. It doesn't sound like he was being particularly sensitive to the human emotion of disgust when it comes to people like that. But he's not necessarily wrong. Yeah, we got to stigmatize it. Boom, we have to stigmatize it. But he's not necessarily like wrong on that topic. It's just an uncomfortable conversation to have. But you're going to end up engaging in like it's harm reduction, you know, to allow pedophiles to come forward and get the help that they need. So it's just an uncomfortable topic to have, or conversation to have.
They were a match made in heaven, and to some extent, their audiences recognized it. Unlike most people Destiny debated, MrGirl was the one person who shared his commitment to entertaining whatever opinions for the sake of argument. Whether that was a good thing or not, his audience definitely enjoyed watching it, to the point that whenever MrGirl got banned or suspended from a platform, many prominent figures in Destiny's fanbase ran to his rescue, defending him from ludicrous accusations and advocating for him to be reinstated. By all intents and purposes, Destiny was definitely responsible for giving Max a second wind to an online career that had been debilitated by suspension after
very true. True.
suspension. For a brief period, this surge in popularity yielded a lot of golden moments.
I will slather diarrhea all over my face.
Children are slaves. Don't you think the country would be a better
That part I agree with. That part I agree with, actually.
place if we took every disabled person and just killed them all? No.
No, I don't think it would be a better place in any capacity.
I would hit my wife and then not apologize.
Unironically, like that would not be good for society. A society that lacks profound empathy for people who are going in through like a rough spot is not a particularly positive society. You'd have to dehumanize yourself and people with disabilities in order to do that, and then your society is on a crash course to being, we'll say, overly logical, which is not a good thing. I would say that empathy is the biggest driver of advancement in a society, trying to figure out problems and trying to connect and help other people. If you have a society of people who are willing to help each other and love each other and teach each other different things, you're going to spread positive ideas faster than like a selfish society that's trying to hoard as many things as possible. You know, so no, I don't think it would be a good idea in any capacity. That sounds absolutely fucking stupid.
These weren't just of the funny variety either, as Max often succeeded in getting under people's skin and extracting unusual reactions from them, seemingly without even trying.
Left the door open and wide enough for you?
World of Healthcare CEOs, that might be a better world, actually. And only because like those people obviously have succumbed to greed too much. And so maybe we need to get rid of them. Maybe they're not good for society. I don't know.
You want to knock the whole wall down to make room for how mad you are?
But as it turned out, giving Max this second wind was a major mistake, as in late 2022, he turned against Destiny and his audience. As previously mentioned and reiterated by Destiny himself, the last ban Max suffered was on account of a mass flagging campaign coming from groypers. The thing is, these groypers only came into contact with Max because he started arguing with them over Destiny streams with Nick Fuentes. This,
I mean, MrGirl and Nick Fuentes are just opposite sides of the same coin.
In turn, was recontextualized by Max as if his deplatforming was the fault of Destiny and his community. He proceeded to go to war with Destiny's subreddit, to the point where he couldn't sleep for weeks.
Well, I remember watching MrGirl at ABBA talk to Destiny about how much of like Nick Fuentes wasn't great, but then also ABBA talked about how MrGirl wasn't great. Like they're both shit, and he shouldn't associate with any of them. You know, I think ABBA's like the only normal person that's friends with Destiny, which is actually kind of interesting. It's surprising, but that's the only normal person around Destiny. It's fucking crazy.
A lot of that is because of your subreddit. You ban some criticism that you just don't like in your own subreddit.
Me too, man. I do too.
Because of how it makes you feel. Imagine how it would make you feel if you and anyone who would agree.
I mean, I don't have a subreddit, but like if people annoy me in comments, I'll just hide them from the channel. I don't care. Not if you disagree with me. It's fine to disagree with me. Some people are just obnoxious about it, so I ban them.
With you was banned from responding, and for periods of time you are the main topic of the subreddit. It's a really terrible feeling watching this story be told about you.
Yeah, go make a video about it. If you don't like me, go make a video about it. You don't have to go crying in the comments about me.
And obviously, I understand what this feels like, right? You certainly understand. I know what this feels like. I've had plenty of subreddits do this to me before. Yeah.
Okay.
The point Max is making here is that since they were friends, he was hurt that Destiny didn't orient his subreddit's moderation to be more favorable toward him so as not to impact his career negatively. Meanwhile, Destiny argued that no one's well-being should depend on how other people's communities behave. For a guy who spent years upon years bragging about how easily he could push other people's buttons and how little he cared for the backlash, Max was weirdly sensitive to how other people talked about him.
Yeah, especially now. I mean, it makes sense because he's probably just started to make money again because he was associating with Destiny. He's like, oh my god. And then things are crumbling around him and he's like, wait, you know, he's got that sweet taste.
Again, something was fundamentally shifting underneath Max's surface, as being online for too long had made him increasingly deranged. Soon after his declaration of war, he got into a Twitter squabble with a couple of other people in the Destiny-adjacent community. The reason—
Oh, isn't that Chud Logic and
why? After his declaration of war, he got into a—
Oh, Stardust. Okay.
Twitter squabble with a couple of other people in the—
Whatever happened to Stardust? I've been so out of the loop with like a lot of commentary people for so long. It's been very good for my mental health.
Because I was one of the shitty ones too.
I think you just become a bad person when you let's see. Is she still making content? No, not really. Like a month ago? I guess she stopped streaming. Oh, okay.
Destiny adjacent community. The reason why? They got mad at him for starting his stream with his pants hanging too low, which they said exposed his hair. Not the hair.
His penor. Thank you for $5 from Huge Astle. Incredible stuff. Hashtag incredible stuff. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's incredible stuff.
On his head. As much as it's a goofball move to get up in arms about this, there was already momentum and friction between him and the rest of Destiny's orbiters, meaning this just—
Well, wasn't it more of like a power play? Like they argue it was a power play, like he got into a stream with them and then he did that or something to try to be provocative towards them. I think that might have been what it was. I could be wrong, but if that's the case, though, like it probably was. Like that sounds like what Max does all the time, right?
Fanned the flames of the bridge burning between MrGirl and the rest of the Destiny extended universe. His next brilliant move was to do an hour-and-a-half long stream on Twitter, where he aimed to expose Destiny for being exploitative and disrespectful to those who came on his stream.
Oh my god, we'll stop jerking off on the stream and he won't come. Thank you for $2 from Ellington Moose. Stardust is dating Beckett from Cope and Seed. I don't know what those words mean. I don't know what the fuck any of that means. What does that fucking mean, bro? Sorry, I'm being too weird about it. Not weird, but like I don't know what Cope and Seed. Beckett. What the fuck am I looking at? I thought it was a band. I thought you were talking about a band. Oh, this is a channel. Oh, this is a YouTube channel. A VTuber? She's dating a VTuber?
Today's video is
I don't know. Oh, wait.
overcorrecting, and we'll get to.
Oh, Ed Sheeran. You could have just said that. You could have just said it was Ed Sheeran. Okay, that's all you had to say.
In actuality, all that Max had was a screenshot of Destiny exchanging lewd messages with Anna, a girl who is known to be a liar and generally unstable person. As if that was proof of, well...
Sounds like MrGirl's type of girl. And Destiny's type of girl. He seems to like crazy fucking women. That's his problem.
It's kind of hard to tell what this was supposed to prove. Max was grasping at anything he could do to squeeze every last drop of attention out of his association with Destiny. A small commentary channel named Nicholas Diorio butted into the drama, sharing new screenshots of Anna and Destiny talking, wherein she could be seen clearly stating she did not think she was being manipulated in any way. As a matter of fact, she claimed the opposite, that Max was the one being extremely manipulative, pressuring her into taking part in his expose.
Who would have ever thought Max would do that? Max, part of Max Weinberg and the Max Weinberg 7. Like, what the hell?
Responding to Nick, Max claimed he only ever said that they were exchanging lewd messages and nothing more, right before he once again claimed that Destiny exploited her. This wasn't an expose as much as a straightforward smear attempt that failed to launch since Max didn't really have anything. Still, despite his one and only potential witness coming out and claiming the exact opposite of what he was alleging, Max didn't give up. If anything, this made him even more staunch in his battle. His usual apathetic affect gave way to a bitter and resentful tone, and he became...
Really? Max? MrGirl, thanks for $2 from Ellington Moose. I call him... Okay, well, I'm not going to say that, but thank you for the $2 from Origasto. What level is the Troll Warrior? I haven't even played it, brother. I've been just chilling, unfortunately.
Unable to talk about anything besides this drama, and his tactics got increasingly shady, from blaming Destiny for his community's actions, to contacting past girlfriends of Destiny from over 7 years prior to see if they had anything scathing to say, only to come up with nothing.
Wow, I'm surprised.
If anything, doing this called into question his own history with women, which is checkered to say the least.
I mean, he will sit there and he brags about like hitting women. I remember he has like some disgusting shit. I remember he would make his girlfriend like sob for attention just for views on videos. Like, it's actually disgusting.
Back in the middle of 2022, MrGirl released a video titled "You're My Real Doll," in which he talks to his girlfriend, Shaylin, about something he did that upset her.
Okay.
Just name yourself Shaylin, not Shaylin. What are you trying too hard? Trying to be artistic.
Okay, so you've been pretty upset with me for the last few days. Because I said that you were my sex doll.
In this extremely bizarre setting, Shaylin goes on to explain that he jumped into bed with her and said she was his doll, and when she objected to it, he insisted, which made her feel uncomfortable, and like she couldn't have any boundaries. For context, this interview took place after Max...
Yeah, this is the same conversation that they had where he tried to get her to consent to something forever. Like, okay, we're gonna do this, and like setting, even though because that's not how consent works. It was such a strange conversation.
Bought a human-sized doll to experiment how that could potentially change the dynamics of his relationship with Shaylin. Max is laughing as she goes over the situation, and though Shaylin does smile, it's very stilted and awkward. He then explains his perspective on it.
The implication is that I don't get to have any boundaries or set any limits.
It's not that you don't get to have any limits. It's that there's a limit to your limits.
Well, yeah. Come here, bud.
You have to have sex with me. So you can have boundaries. To a point. You can say no for a certain number of times.
From watching a lot of other MrGirl videos.
Yeah, so this is like the problem. It's almost like a dog whistling for sexual assault. When you're in a relationship, if you want to maintain the relationship, you're probably going to have sex with your partner. I don't think that that's a particularly hot take. Because it's not a hot take in any capacity. right? But the way that he's expressing it makes it seem like he has like a possession or ownership over her body. And that's the point. He's saying it provocatively because that's the point. That's the only time he gets attention. It's not like a hot take to be like, hey, listen, if you want your partner to be with you, you kind of have to have sex with them sometimes. Doesn't mean that you, like, I've had sex before when I'm not like in the mood for it. It's still consensual. My wife's done the same thing for me. Still consensual. But that's a normal take for a normal person trying to express that in a way that doesn't dog whistle the justification of sexually assaulting your partner because you have a level of entitlement to their body. And that's the whole point of MrGirl and his content, pretty much everything that he does. Like that's the point. That's the undertone of it, right? He'll just be like, oh no, I'm trying to be provocative for attention. But when it comes down to it, like I don't think it's unreasonable to think that he's trying to dog whistle justification for discussing acts. I mean, we're talking about, this is the person that's like admitted to thinking Cuties was hot. Like he thought it was sexy.
It's possible to pick up that he's subtly framing the things he says as humorous by deliberately being over the top and creepy.
Well, it's not humorous, so.
However, as the video goes on, it becomes clear that he is completely serious.
You have to get me off.
Yeah, and that's fine, but...
No, you have to.
I know.
Okay.
But I just think that the implication of it is scary. Well, sex dolls get... They don't have any choice. They have no autonomy.
That's what I'm
they
saying,
just lie
that,
there.
Okay. I prefer it when you just lie there. Since you get upset when I tell you to just lie there and not move, and a doll's gonna do that anyway, it would be interesting to see what it's like for me to just the doll. Because the doll always does what I want it to do.
Whatever aspects of this discussion...
It's just so weird, because like I have pretty intense objectifying intercourse with my wife. Not to get too personal. But it's always, this is just weird. Like, this is just unconsensual. I don't know. Max needs to find a person that hates themselves and wants to die if he wants to have this type of intercourse with somebody, because that's crazy.
That initially seemed playful, like him cursing at her or telling her to shut up, begin showing themselves as not playful, but with intent. After minutes of Max repeatedly prodding her and insulting her, Shaylin begins reacting in the same measure.
You're gonna put this in the video, and I feel uncomfortable because I am already in a very uncomfortable position of like not wanting people to their relationship is abusive, but you're like berating me about
Well, obviously it is.
asking you a question about you asking me to agree to sex on a regular basis and be a sex doll. I don't want to do this. I am quitting the interview, and I do not want any of this to be in the video.
What do you mean by pushing your boundaries? It's not pushing your boundaries to ask you for something sexual. That's not pushing.
Asking me for something sexual on camera is pushing my boundaries. If I had known you were going to do that, I probably would have addressed that before we got on camera, but I didn't know you were going to do that.
The video ends with her breaking down in tears and cutting the conversation short.
Yep, that's pretty much, and that's why people would watch MrGirl. Not because he's intelligent, not because he's having a smart conversation, not because he's funny. It's because he does provocative things for attention and he pretends to be an intellectual. He is not smart. He's somebody who thinks that he's very intelligent. He's not intelligent. He's just provocative. And he mistakes the attention that he gets for being provocative for being intelligent. He's a very stupid person. He has nothing of particular value or interest or intelligence to say, ever. There's never really anything that he says that's valuable. He doesn't say anything new, interesting, unique. He doesn't have an interesting perspective that's meant to make you think and change your mind. It's just meant to make you as uncomfortable as possible. So you'll go, this is really weird, guys. Like, I don't like this person. And that's where his attention comes from. Nobody in his audience likes him or values him for anything, except for maybe the fact that they also share their liking fucking kids or something. He's a disgusting person.
The way you make people think I'm abusive without saying the word abusive or by doing anything.
It's very clear he is abusive.
Explicit. It's a very subtle throwing under the bus, but it's
crazy. I don't have any issues with my wife thinking I'm abusive. Isn't that wild?
Happening. And I know it's happening.
I can't listen to you. I need to take a break.
Okay. Do you want to play Smash?
No, I just want to be alone.
Okay.
You want to play? So you want to play a video game? That's very mature. And he records like the whole thing. This is a profound lack of respect for your partner. Like, that's insane. There's times where my wife and I have made content. She's like, I don't like this. It's making me, like, it's frustrating me. And it's like, you know, it sucks because we just made content. But I'll be like, okay, and we just scrap it. You know, because it's only because I happen to respect my wife. What a hot take, right? Oh, shit.
This is possibly the most revealing thing that Max ever posted online. However much in his element he seems to be in his writing, videos, or music, it doesn't come close to painting as full a picture of who he actually is as when he's arguing with Shaylin, and that picture looks grim. Interestingly enough, they both acknowledge that the way the conversation is going makes him look like an emotional manipulator. Coincidentally,
that's what he wants you to think. That's the point of the video.
In an article on his Little Shame Lane blog from 2011, which was also an adult toy review, Max wrote this.
Wow.
Hannah's mom freaked out. After reading my entire blog, she brought it to a battered women's shelter, where the workers looked over it and told her I am textbook abusive. Then
That's probably true.
she called all of Hannah's friends and told them to help her make Hannah break up with me. But enough
That's a good mom.
about Hannah's mom. Let's talk about the Monique Alexander realistic fleshlight. I have to say here that they did not break up, as she eventually went on to marry this guy for reasons I cannot comprehend. Regardless, it is noteworthy that Max has been under suspicion of
Clearly she was abused by her parents. Like, what else could it have been?
treating his partners far before he ever got with Shaylin. However, I need to note here that these kinds of interactions between them were so common that people made entire compilations out of Mr. Girl's mistreatment of Shaylin.
That's a stupid question and should tell you that what you need to do is talk about your feelings, not ask more dumb. I understand that you have some other retarded argument you want to make that has nothing to do with that. That's not why I'm screaming
Whoa, based screaming?
at you.
It's horrible for me because, like, I already feel bad about it. Like, why would you do that? I mean,
I have a real question. Genuine question. Why? Well, you know what? I kind of get it. Like, why don't you just leave? But I get it. She probably loves him. There's probably moments in their relationship where she's like, oh, he's not a bad guy. I couldn't possibly understand why. That's how, like, abuse keeps going. Maybe she's afraid to be without him. I don't know. But still, man. I mean, I guess all I can really say is if you're in a situation like this, guys, just fucking leave to the best of your ability. Holy fuck.
why? Because you explained it to me, but it's horrible.
I assume Shaylin eventually changed her mind about not wanting the interview to be part of this video, because if that's not the case, then he ultimately...
Well, he's probably badgered her over and over again until she gave him what he wanted. So, like, yeah, no shit, she's going to change her perspective.
did violate her boundaries by posting it. Despite all of this, they're still together to this day, with
He doesn't seem like the kind of person who respects her boundaries, so...
Shaylin largely supporting his crusade against Destiny, which a lot of people chalk up to some form of Stockholm Syndrome. After Max
probably
messaged every single girl Destiny followed on Instagram, and even resorted to reaching out to other orbiters
that's like unhinged
he'd previously beefed with to try and scramble for any source of dirt he could get. In March of 2023, he released an article with over 100,000 words on Destiny.
Wow, Destiny really lives rent-free in his mind, huh?
Surprisingly, it had no measurable effect, as it just rehashed things he'd previously said and were far from being secrets in the first place, or were simply gigantic stretches about how Destiny had...
You think that was Mr. Girl's dick in Destiny's mouth? I don't know. That one could make sense.
When people argue against each other on his stream was a kind of gladiatorial match. Regardless of whether Destiny and his community are overall good or bad entities, it's clear that this was motivated by an obsessive vendetta over their personal issues with each other. Fortunately, this effectively closed the chapter on their public spat, and only after this came out did Max move on. But not to better things. In the same month as his article came out, Max was interviewed about his latest online activity, and the topic of his ex-wife was brought up. Specifically, he was asked about having posted nude images of his ex-wife, Hannah, online, in the context of whether that constituted revenge or not, which
I mean, if she didn't want it to happen, then yeah, it constitutes revenge porn.
she had a very tough time answering. Given that they're now divorced, I'm not so sure she's okay with it, but then again, not that much is known about their relationship. Now that his war effort against Destiny had reached its uneventful end, Max...
Hey, what's up, Ryan Beard? Mr. Girl messaged me to try to get me to make a video about this article, lol, and I told him that sharing evidence coming from an abuser would not look good. That's true. He's fucking... No, he's definitely an abuser. You know, you could say whatever you want about Destiny, but Mr. Girl is obviously an abuser. Like, there's no doubt about it. There's no other motivation there except for abuse. I think Destiny's an edgy little gooner. A little immature, edgy gooner, you know? But I don't think Mr. Girl means well on anything. I think he's a legitimate threat to society, guys, okay? You can take it how you want to take it. I don't care.
Max could go back to talking about what he really finds interesting. In August of 2023, he posted an article titled, "People Shouldn't Go to Jail for Looking at CP." In it, he says, "I enjoy cranking it to Cardi B music videos."
Hey guys, I really need attention right now. I'm going to have a provocative take because nobody's paying attention to me because I have nothing of interest or value to say. So I'm going to say provocative shit because it's all that gets me attention.
Those cartoons about incest and stories about men being violated by their mothers. I also used to watch real adult films, but 6 months ago, I stopped. I believe the financial incentives and pressures involved in it make it so the performers can't truly consent. I say this as someone who has been in front of the camera a few times myself. If we get universal basic income someday, and I know the performers are not choosing between homelessness or butt stuff, I'll start watching real stuff again. I do wonder though, if I were a PDF file, would I look at CP? Oh yeah. I wouldn't be able to stop myself. Partly because I'd have no other outlet for my urges, but also because merely looking at CP is ultimately a victimless crime. This may seem...
Well, no, it's not, because you have to create it. And in order to create CP, you have to exploit a child, so that's stupid.
Seem like just another thought experiment, but to Max, this isn't a hypothetical whatsoever, as his participation in this stream heavily suggests.
Have you ever looked at... I need you to answer the question honestly, or leave. Yeah.
Okay, like, there's an interesting... I actually talked to my wife the other day about this. I know this is like a strange topic of conversation, But, you know, Lolly is disgusting. You know, you guys know what that is. It's drawing depictions of youngsters. And I was talking to her. I'm like, you know, I said, like, this is absolutely disgusting. Like, I was like, they should probably ban this. Or is that too far? And she sat there for a second. She said, you know, she had an interesting point. She's like, you know, I think there might be a conversation to have about it as a treatment method for, you know, non-offending, you know, pedophiles, possibly, but it shouldn't be for the average consumption of people. I was like, that's an interesting perspective. You know, that was just her off the cuff. Like, we didn't sit down and like have a deep conversation about it, where we really talked and fleshed it out for a long period of time. But I was like, that makes sense to me. That could potentially be something, but I don't think it should be something that people consume. It's a fucking kid.
I should just leave.
Have you ever looked at
I don't think I have.
I don't think I have a fucking wild response.
I don't think he's gonna indulge that.
Mind you, a month before this article, he made a review of the movie Sound of Freedom, which is ostensibly about a US government agent who hunts down human traffickers. Despite being produced by a relatively small studio, the movie was highly successful at the box office and went on to be very well liked by audiences. Of course, Max saw it differently. In his review, he
was Lolly a gateway drug? I mean, I think it could be. Why not? Like, I feel like, how does it help to give people access to that kind of content? I feel like that could potentially cause people to have like increased urges of like kids. No, that doesn't make sense to you. Like, I feel like that makes perfect sense to me.
He said, "The Sound of Freedom panders to our collective."
I mean, you're normalizing something that's like despicable, even if it's just drawn. It's still a depiction of an actual person, right? Like when you watch like animated horror movies or something, you still get emotionally provoked. You know, you get emotionally provoked through art. It doesn't have to be an actual person for it to be provoke a particular emotion in somebody's brain. So
delusion that CSA can be stopped with violence, that you can out-violence the violence. I should disclose here that I strongly dislike Donald Trump. I find the QAnon, conspiratorial, anti-pedo, anti-Jew shit among his supporters very disconcerting, and it all looks to me like an excuse to join an insane cult so you don't have to deal with complex problems in the real world. I voted for Biden because I think Trump doesn't respect the rule of law and has no morals.
Wow, that's definitely helping. That's why Biden lost. Oh no, Biden won. Oh shit. Fuck, I was thinking of Kamala.
However, Biden has sniffed, kissed, and fondled too many children in public to stay in my good graces. I think he is a creep who has...
Dude, what are you talking about? You like that kind of shit?
...at best, been inappropriate with kids. In private, the truth is probably worse. Common things being common. While Max is just addressing how the movie became politicized, so it's not completely out of place, it's strange that he simultaneously says he voted for Biden and that he believes Biden is a creep. Usually, those two things are mutually exclusive and cancel each other out. In another section of this article, he speaks about the personal experiences he had with people he knew who had suffered this kind of thing, noting...
Thank you for the small gut from Nika. I hope I said that right. I'm feeling a little... I don't know if I said a bad word. Thank you for the subscription, ma'am.
that their families usually ignored or pretended it didn't happen, which he interprets as the default reaction, and even gives it some degree of justification. However, there is an alternative explanation that presents itself once you factor in that multiple of the examples Max gives are girls he dated. It could just be that girls who are neglected by their families are overrepresented in Max's dating history. This isn't to say that cases like that don't exist, but Max's perspective could definitely be skewed here. Before he closes the review, he says that the movie is homophobic and refers to one of the children who were trafficked as attractive. I'm obviously singling out the...
Wow. That definitely does not sound like MrGirl at all.
Most inflammatory things he said here, but again, it's his intent to be inflammatory and say these things. I'm just documenting it. In September of 2023, he was banned from YouTube once again for violating the child safety policy of the TOS. Whatever momentum he had built up from his songs and his association with Destiny that could establish him as a content creator was on his deathbed. In April, he made a hardcore pivot and rebrand, creating a TikTok account called Observer Physics, where he supposedly was going to focus exclusively on subjects like astronomy and astrophysics.
But he just couldn't stop talking about kids. It's just... It's the curse of being Mr.
But he was apparently banned from r/physics for claiming to make grandiose discoveries in the field without backing his claims up whatsoever.
That sounds just like him.
Additionally, he claimed to have debunked a discovery made by Albert Einstein, which is just really funny. It was alleged that Max was trying to get legitimate academics to visit his livestream to discuss his ideas, but he couldn't contain himself, getting into fights with them in emails before the streams could happen. As of the writing of this video, there are only 2 uploads to his TikTok, and though they were successful, it seems he's abandoned this project. I hope it comes back though. I'm excited for MrGirl's Time Cube and Terry Davis arc. If he doesn't do it himself, one of his sycophantic followers who imitate him online, because yes, these people exist, will probably do it before he can. Besides his physics side project, in July 2024, Max dropped an EP titled The Blackface, where he raps alongside a
Wow, more provocative content that has no actual substance and just meant to provoke you. Incredible.
black version of himself using an AI voice. The track list includes songs such as one of the good ones, Some of My Best Friends Are Black, and most importantly, Shake Your Flaps. One of the latest developments for Max is that he announced he was working on putting together a documentary. Care to guess what it's about?
Is about
fucking kids, probably.
Child sexual abuse.
What?
Yep, exactly. Makes sense.
A topic to become a one-trick pony about. Also in July of 2020.
Dude, it's because he likes kids and he's pretending to be an advocate for them in his own way because he wants to get closer to kids. Like, that's literally all it is. Like, he's a fucking predator. Okay, he's the person that auditioned 5,000 different twerking girls for the Cuties movie and like really liked it. It was his favorite. They found the right people after 3, but he's just like, we gotta do like 5,000 more just for good measure. Like, that's who Max is.
24. He wrote a Substack article.
That's exactly who he is.
About Dr. K from the YouTube channel Healthy Gamer GG, whom he'd been calling out for allegedly mishandling a therapy case in 2020 that's related to a person's death. However, due to how little this case has to do with MrGirl directly, besides the fact that it's extremely complicated and to some extent a legal issue to
I'm sure it is very complicated, and Dr. K is a very intelligent person, and like if he made a mistake, you know, hopefully they operate in the correct capacity, but MrGirl doesn't like Dr. K because MrGirl is a fucking creep. That's really all it boils down to. Frankly, he probably just projected himself onto that guy. Dr. K is an intelligent, introspective, deep-meaninged person, and I think a greater representation of what it means to be a man. And I think that upsets MrGirl because he wants that attention. Dr. K never says provocative things, ever. And he's still very popular because he's a very intelligent, interesting, emotional, positively emotional person, and I think that upsets MrGirl because that's what he wants to be.
to tackle. I'll refrain.
That's literally it.
From going too deep here. Since this announcement, things became quiet as far as controversy went, but it's only a matter of time until he gets another 15 minutes for saying something creepy, or Shaylin leaves him and drops an hour-long video explaining how evil he is or something. Until then, I've been Turkey Tom. Thanks for watching, and until next time, leave me alone.
Damn, you think he's gonna be Turkey Tom anymore after this? Crazy. All right, well, good video.